Thank you. For the debate, I recognize the honorable member for East Kingstown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, honorable members.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I crave this opportunity to make my contribution as my parliamentary colleagues before me and those to follow to the appropriation bill for 2023. Madam Speaker, I wish to, however, preface my presentation by expressing extreme gratitude to Almighty God. And in fact, if you would allow me, Madam Speaker, to just read a couple of verses from my favorite Psalm, Psalm 91. Says, "He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver me from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. And I will go forward to say and to conclude, Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee." Madam Speaker, only me and Almighty God know the reason for reading this, and I'll leave it there. I want to express gratitude to my family, particularly my mom, my siblings, and my children and grandchildren, for providing me with the strength, the courage, and the fortitude to perform my task as a parliamentary representative in what I have experienced to be a very lonely environment. Politics is a very lonely environment. And so I appreciate greatly the support, the constant and unwavering support that they provide. I also would like to express to the people of East Kingstown who have reposed confidence in me to represent them in this august House, and who I am quite sure will continue so to do for a very long time to come. Without them, I would not be here, and Almighty God, of course. My constituency council, my women's group and my young Dems, and my extended NDP family, my honorable leader, my parliamentary colleagues, and all the entities and organs of the New Democratic Party. To all of them, I say thanks, and I appreciate the foundation that they provide for me to do and to serve the people of this country. Madam Speaker, allow me to contextualize my presentation by referring to some opening comments by the Minister of Finance in his budget address. Let me further say, however, that my presentation, unlike most of my parliamentary colleagues who have already spoken and left references to their constituencies for the end of their presentations, my presentation will incorporate issues germane and critical to the constituency of East Kingstown. I want to quote from the Honorable Minister of Finance, his budget speech. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is in the midst of a recovery from the triple blows of the COVID pandemic, the eruptions of La Soufrière volcano, and the impact of Hurricane Elsa. Growth in 2022 has returned the economy to pre-pandemic levels of production, but the recovery is uneven, with vulnerable populations still far from a return to normalcy. He goes on to say, despite numerous and varied downside risks, the Vincentian economy is projected to grow by approximately 6% in 2023. This growth, if realized, will propel St. Vincent and the Grenadines beyond 2019 GDP levels. Budget 2023 seeks to build upon the foundation laid by 2022 recovery and to return to the government's mission of accelerating a sustainable, people-centered development transformation in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Other comments included, Budget 2023 is a roads budget. Budget 2023 confronts head-on the issue of food insecurity, which has been exacerbated by rising inflation, supply chain issues, and the war in Ukraine. Madam Speaker, listening to the Honorable Minister of Finance's pronouncements in his budget speech, one would get the impression that all of our socio-economic issues will be addressed and that this budget will serve as a panacea for our woeful socio-economic situation in which we presently find ourselves. A situation which, in my view, notwithstanding the recent challenges of COVID and the volcanic eruptions of La Soufrière, could have been much better had we diligently pursued focused and targeted implementation of our National Economic and Social Development Plan. Let me quote from that National Economic and Social Development Plan, just to put things in context and to set the stage for my contribution to this budget debate. The National Economic and Social Development Plan for St. Vincent and the Grenadines covers the period 2013 to 2025 and outlines the country's long-term strategies for national development. The plan offers a vision for improving the quality of life for all Vincentians and is anchored on the achievement of the following overarching goals: high and sustained levels of economic growth, reduced unemployment and poverty levels, improved physical infrastructure and environmental sustainability, high levels of human and social development, a peaceful, safe, and secure nation, a technologically advanced workforce, a deep sense of national pride and cultural renaissance, regional integration, and enhanced global solidarity. The vision set for St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the proposed development strategies for the country will, if carefully pursued, lead to balanced, comprehensive, and sustainable development. Clearly, Madam Speaker, honorable members, the vision has not been clearly pursued because the government has failed miserably in accomplishing the aforementioned overarching goals. This is a plan that's been in existence for 10 years now, since 2013, and it's coming to its conclusion 2025. In fact, the estimates for this year has allocated, I think, $120,000 to start the new National Economic and Social Development Plan for the ensuing period following the conclusion of this period. It says that a multi-tiered planning horizon will be used in implementing the plan. This is configured in the long-term or 13-year plan, while the medium-term horizon provides for the implementation of specific objectives, strategies, and action plans over 3-year intervals. The latter would inform the annual budgetary exercise. So I'm saying all of this, Madam Speaker, to say that this budget should be a direct reflection of the National Economic and Social Development Plan. The plan highlights 5 strategic goals, and their objectives are are advanced to realize the vision that has been articulated. In the interest of time, Madam Speaker, I will focus on a few of what I consider to be the more pertinent strategic goals. These are goal number 1, re-engineering economic growth. And some of the strategic objectives include, first of all, to maintain strong macroeconomic fundamentals. Well, when we talk about macroeconomic fundamentals, we're talking about economic growth, we're talking about our debt, and we are talking about other macroeconomic indicators. Let me just refer, Madam Speaker, to data from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. From 2018 to 2021, the 2 years prior to the pandemic and the disaster we met with the volcanic eruptions, 2018 and 2019. The economic growth rate in the entire ECCU was 3.85% in 2018. In Anguilla, it was 8.54%, Antigua 6.8%, Dominica 3.5%, Grenada 4.36%, Montserrat 6.63%, St. Kitts and Nevis 2.67%, St. Lucia 2.93%, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines 2.0%, the lowest growth rate in the entire sub-region. 2019, a year which seems to be the reference point for the Minister of Finance. Everything is going back to 2019 levels, pre-pandemic. In 2019, for the entire ECCU, the currency union, the growth rate was 4.15%. In Anguilla, it was 5.53%, Antigua 4.86%, Dominica 5.50%, Grenada 0.68%, Montserrat 7.04%, St. Kitts and Nevis 4.17%, St. Lucia minus 0.06%, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines 0%. So our growth rate decreased from 2018 to 2019 and maintained its low position in the sub-region. So, Madam Speaker, when we talk about re-engineering economic growth and talking about maintaining strong economic fundamentals, these are the realities. I heard the Honorable Minister of Sports and the Public Service talking about plan and plan. This is the plan that you should be focusing on. This is the plan that you should be implementing to improve the quality of lives of our people. Don't come in here and try to hoodwink people and talk about plan and plan. Madam Speaker, continuing on the goal number 1, re-engineering economic growth. Another objective is to stimulate growth in the tourism sector. And I want to, again, quickly refer to some data from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Because when I come in here, I come in here with my evidence, because I have thousands of people in East Kingston to make proud. So I don't come in and just shoot off my mouth. Tourism, Madam Speaker. And I will just stick to one indicator in the interest of time. But there are other indicators, and the data is there. You can go to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank website and access all of this data. Between 2016 and 2020, up until the pandemic, the 5 years prior to and including the pandemic year, let's look at total visitor expenditure. I'll go from 2016. Actually, I won't go that far back because I don't have enough time. Let's do 2018 and 2019. Total visitor expenditure, the amount of money that visitors to our country spend when they come here or to the countries of the sub-region. In 2018, in Anguilla, $291.3 million. In Antigua, $1.73 billion. Dominica, $220 million. Grenada, $568 million. Montserrat, $26.59 million. St. Kitts and Nevis, $528.5 million. St. Lucia, $2.43 billion. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, $281 million. 2019, the Honorable Minister of Finance's reference here. Total visitor expenditure for Anguilla, $440.75 million. And it is important to note the figure for Anguilla, Madam Speaker. I'll make a point in a minute. Antigua, $2.095 billion. That's the amount of money that Antigua earned from people going to Antigua, tourists, visitors. Dominica, $284.7 million. Grenada, 572. St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, 26.81. St. Kitts and Nevis, 509.7. St. Lucia, $2.69 billion. And St. Vincent and the Grenadines, $318.2 million. Madam Speaker, Anguilla, I want to make a reference point here. Anguilla, a country, an island state that is 31 square miles and 15,000 people. No international airport. All right, well, I stand corrected, my honorable friend. I too make mistakes. No international airport, no cruise ship berth. No international airport in Anguilla, no cruise ship berth. And Anguilla has outstripped us in total visitor expenditure every single year. Every single year. And we are talking about development of our people and economic growth and transformative economy and this revolution and that revolution. Madam Speaker, another objective in the development plan is to enhance the role of the private sector and manufacturing in economic and social development in conjunction with state and cooperative sectors. I appreciate the efforts made as expressed in the budget address by the Honorable Minister of Finance and his government to address and recognize the importance of the private sector. The 2% decrease in corporate taxes is commendable. In my view, not enough, but it's a start, and I appreciate that. I also support the general idea of reducing the level of tax non-compliance by our private sector. But I cannot support the notion that you should aggressively and, in many instances, intrusively go after businesses who are in default or who are non-compliant. For example, I think a more effective approach could be to do what Grenada and Trinidad just did and offer tax amnesties, for example, to our businesses, to encourage them and to give them that opportunity to rectify and to come up to speed based on the circumstances and the situations which place them in that situation. And, well, I haven't heard it in this year's budget. Well, that's your interpretation of the impact of amnesty. Well, I have made a suggestion to you. You can take it or leave it. The point is, when you're talking about going after businesses who owe taxes and so on, and some of them really and truly have no real legitimate reason for being non-compliant, but many of them also have legitimate and justifiable reasons. But when this government, which owes business houses in this country over $100 million, almost $150 million for the provision of goods and services and refuse to pay that money to the struggling businesses, then how could you reasonably go after these businesses who are non-compliant? You must do your own work as well. You must be diligent as well. You owe the people, you owe the businesses, pay them their money. Oh, so that is a tit for tat. Because they don't pay their taxes, you keep their money? So that is like saying, all right, you go home, your child comes home and he misbehaves, so you don't give him dinner? Huh? Come on. Madam Speaker, another objective here is to attain a strong and sustainable external trade position. And I listened to my honorable friend, Senator Peters, earlier today, talking about, well, when she made her presentation in her capacity as Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade. And she made reference to the allocations to the Department of Foreign Trade of something like $900 and something million, almost $1 million, $900 and some $1,000, sorry, almost $1 million for that department. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Foreign Trade is basically responsible for ensuring or for making sure or for leading the charge to improve our trade situation. I'm trying to find some data here again from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to drive home the point. But the point is that we have a trade situation where perennially we are faced with a trade deficit, where we spend more money to import than we earn from exporting. In fact, the most recent figure, I think our trade deficit is somewhere in the order of $600 or $700 million. And I'm not going to get into economic technicalities. I am speaking here so my people can understand, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Merchandise trade we're talking about. You want me to spend 5 minutes explaining what that is? Okay. I already cited my source. What are you listening to? Anyway, Madam Speaker, the point is that if you're talking about growing an economy and you're talking about increasing your GDP and ultimately increasing the quality of lives of our people, then trade and export earnings is very important. I was heartened to hear the Minister of Agriculture outline some of his ministry's plans to reduce our food import bill and to tackle the issue of food insecurity, and I commend him and his ministry for moving in that direction. I am not so sure that I'm 100% sold, but we will see as time goes by. So, Madam Speaker, in the Honorable Minister of Foreign Trade and Foreign Affairs, I did not hear any plans. I was not confident in hearing her presentation that her ministry is equipped or prepared to really address this very serious issue. How are we going to increase our exports? What are we going to produce? How are we going to increase our level of production? Where is the coordination between her ministry and the productive sector ministries like agriculture, tourism? I didn't hear any of that. And to me, when you come into this honorable house and you're giving account of your stewardship and trying to impress upon the people of this country that this is what you're going to do for them, then that is the kind of information that you ought to provide. Let me move on quickly, Madam Speaker. Goal number 2, enabling increased human and social development strategic objectives to reduce poverty. This is what the National Economic and Social Development Plan has highlighted, between 2013 and 2025, this government is going to reduce poverty. I don't even need to make reference to the data and the figures, even though we were told that the poverty report would no longer be produced because the data was contaminated, yada, yada, yada. If you're poor, you're poor. If we have 40,000 people in this country poor, no contamination of no data can change it. End of story. And we know, Madam Speaker, all of us in this honorable house know. We walk through town, we walk through our villages, we walk through the windward side, the leeward side. We see the faces of poverty in this country. Listen, the incidence of poverty in this country, let me put this into context. And I challenge the Minister of Finance to refute this with empirical evidence. You can't come with no empirical evidence because you see the evidence was contaminated. All right? Madam Speaker, well, it's your job to defend what I'm saying. Madam Speaker, in this country, it is estimated that and this was pre-COVID, so my thinking is that it's probably even higher than what we've been told, and much worse. In this country, it is estimated that 40% of our population lives at or below the poverty line. Let me explain what that means. The poverty line is an indicator which takes into consideration the basic necessities for survival, food, clothing, shelter, what have you, and what you need to survive above that line. Anything below that line, you at or below that line, you're considered as poor. And if you go far enough below that line, you're considered as indigent. International standards have established the poverty line. In other words, the minimum amount of money that you need to survive to not be considered as living at or below the poverty line at 14 EC dollars a day. Some calculations bring it up to 17 EC dollars a day. So the reality in our country is that we have at least 40,000 Vincentians living on $14 a day or less. You could chuckle all you want. I think it was Shadow who said poverty is hell. Poverty is hell. We're living in hell in St. Vincent and the Grenadines because of the incidence of poverty. And you coming in here and telling me about plan? And you have the gall to approve another $120,000 to do another plan? Come on. Another objective, Madam Speaker, in the National Economic and Social Development Plan is to create jobs and reduce the levels of unemployment. Well, where do I start on this issue? The unemployment rate in St. Vincent, by the way, let me go back very quickly to talk. The Honorable Minister likes to talk about a historic first in this country. Never before in this country have we had such an extensive road program and so on. Well, the level of poverty and the incidence of poverty in this country is a historic first. Never before have we had such a high incidence of poverty in this country, and it's growing. Let me calm down. Madam Speaker, I know you don't want me and tell me, cool it. Madam Speaker, the objective to create jobs and reduce levels of unemployment. The unemployment rate in St. Vincent right now hovers around mid-20s, about 26%. With youth unemployment, almost double that. And I can tell you, I have done my own analysis in the constituency of East Kingston. And I am telling you, young people in the constituency of East Kingston between the ages of 18 and 30, the unemployment rate in East Kingston among that age group is close to 60%. 60%, 6 out of every 10 young persons in the constituency of East Kingston do not have a job. They don't work. They're not employed. They're struggling, to say the least. I know it. I am through my constituency just as much or more than any other honorable member in this house. So I know what I'm talking about because I live it with them. I feel it with them. Every time I go on the block, up Murray Village, up Sion Hill, Bramble, where have we to do? You're going to have the one or two go scrunt you. That is normal. You know, you don't get away from that. But generally speaking, these guys want help. They need support so that they can help themselves. They need jobs. They need money in their pocket. Look, I know guys on the block of Murray Village. These guys, some of these guys are involved in farming, livestock rearing. In fact, all of my Christmas meat I got from the guys at Murray Village. I went up on the block about 6 o'clock in the morning when they were butchering and so on. And invariably, yeah, there's a small percentage. There's a small percentage. And I'm just using that as an example to show you the level of enterprise that these guys are capable of if they're given the opportunity. I so often have to try to help these guys to get fertilizer, to get feed for the animals and all of this stuff. I have tried to access support from the Ministry of Agriculture with very little success. And I'm sending a word of caution. Well, I don't want to say caution, but I am indicating, I'm alerting the Honorable Minister of Agriculture that I will be beating down his door this year. And I hope he don't walk through the back door and tell me he's not there. Because these guys need help. I cannot give them the support that they need because I don't control the national purse. Guys in up Sion Hill, couple of guys, Mohammed and these guys, you see them going on with the weed whacker. And they're saying, Bramble, more of these guys could be doing this kind of stuff. But they need help. One of the suggestions that they made is that we should invest in some weed whackers and not rent them out, but make it like a kind of cooperative where you have somebody in control of the weed whackers, and once these guys get a job, they go, they borrow the weed whacker, maybe pay $5 or $10 for its upkeep and maintenance. They do it, they make their little money, and then they bring back the weed whacker. You know? That is something that I would love to support if I'm given the support from the Ministry of Agriculture and the government to provide them with the necessary resources and equipment. So when we talk about reducing unemployment, we are woefully short in our efforts. Woefully short in our efforts. I mean, there are guys up there who, one young man I know who's into car detailing. He came to me. I helped him complete the prime application. Every week he calls me, Bramble, I ain't hear from them guys yet. I ain't hear from them guys yet. There's another guy, another young man, in East Kingston. He's into repairing boats and so on. He's building a fiberglass boat right now. He also indicated to me that he submitted an application to Prime. He said over 6 months now, he said, Bramble, where them fellas want me for do go thief? These are the realities, Madam Speaker. These are the realities. So when you come in and talking about road revolution and roads budget, it must be connected to the real issues of our people and the development of our people. You all could smile and laugh over there because you don't know. Rita Marley said, who feels it knows it. Who feels it knows it. All of us driving around in our nice cars and going to our nice homes and all that stuff. But we all have consciences. Every single one of us.
Honorable Member, you have 15 minutes remaining.
15 minutes. Okay, Madam Speaker, I will fast forward. I will fast forward to a couple of the other more important, equally important, sorry. Thank you, Honorable Leader. Madam Speaker, another of the objectives is to empower youth to meaningfully participate in and contribute to national development. And here again, I am advocating for greater skills training in for the youth in East Kingston. At one point, East Kingston had some of the best masons, carpenters, plumbers, you name it, bakers, auto mechanics. In East Kingston, Sion Hill, Murray Village, Rockies, you name it. And I could name off a slew of those guys back then. But as these professionals and as these skilled people aged and they retire into their golden years, as we say, there's that gap between passing on that knowledge and that skill from those guys to the young people. The Rockies Community Center, for example, could be used to facilitate some of this. I know and I appreciate from the Honorable Minister of Housing and National Mobilization the efforts made to repair and to upgrade the Rockies Community Center. And I think on a previous occasion I had made a request for further development of it, because right now it's really not usable. Yeah, they fixed the roof, they painted and so on, but there's no furniture in it, there aren't any appliances, no fridge, no stove, nothing. Mrs. Adams, who runs the preschool downstairs, she has expended tremendous time and resources to try her best to keep it going, not only for her preschool, but for the community. And she needs greater support. She needs greater support. I want to also take this opportunity, Madam Speaker. We're talking about revolution. Well, let me suggest a revolution for you. Not for you, Madam Speaker, but for the Honorable Minister and the government. We all just witnessed a very exciting soccer World Cup in Qatar. I know everybody, most people, most Vincentians was sad because Brazil didn't make it. But in 2026, Madam Speaker, that is when the next World Cup is going to be held. The World Cup is arguably the largest single sporting event on the planet. In 2026, the number of teams qualifying for the World Cup finals will increase from 32 to 48. So St. Vincent and the Grenadines has a better chance because more teams will be given the opportunity. In addition to that, World Cup 2026 is going to be hosted in CONCACAF, our region, by three countries, Canada, the USA, and Mexico. And the hosts automatically qualify for the finals, so they don't have to play to get in and so on. Which means that in CONCACAF, in our region where St. Vincent and the Grenadines plays and is a member, we have 3 free spots because Mexico, Canada, and the USA are already qualified. And we're going to have, I think, an additional 2 or 3 more spots because of the increase in the number of teams. So conceivably, we have about 6 spots up for grabs to make it to the World Cup finals. The other teams in the region, Costa Rica, Panama, Jamaica, maybe Trinidad, those are the teams who traditionally, pose a challenge to us. When I played for St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the mid-1990s, 2000s, St. Vincent experienced its highest ranking of 73rd in the world. I remember in 1992, I had just returned from university. First time ever we played in World Cup qualifying games. And we played against Mexico and all those teams. First time ever. And a World Cup support committee was established and all of that stuff. We were on TV commercials. I mean, we really got excellent support, not only from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Football Federation, but from the NDP government, which was a sports and a youth government. First time ever St. Vincent played in front of millions of people in the world on TV in Mexico, in Azteca Stadium, in Costa Rica. We can return to those levels. And I am suggesting here, Madam Speaker, that for 2026, we launch a sports revolution led by football and St. Vincent's bid to make it to the World Cup 2026. In fact, one of my young dems gave me a little saying, because I touted the idea with him, he's into soccer. And he said, why don't we call it, Bramble, SVG Kicks in World Cup 2026? SVG Kicks in World Cup 2026. And I am challenging the government to lead that charge. I am making myself available. I'm quite sure my honorable colleague from Central Kingston, who has done outstanding work for the development of football in this country, would also make himself available. Let's put together, let's put the ideas and the thoughts together. Because just imagine St. Vincent and the Grenadines playing in World Cup finals. I mean, just imagine. Just imagine. You could say Carl Dixon don't tell you about it. Are you going to embrace the idea? Or are you going to be a comedy all your life? You. Madam Speaker, another goal is to promote good governance and increase the effectiveness of public administration strategic objective. One of the objectives is to develop and maintain a peaceful, safe, and secure environment. And I think we all know where I'm going with this. Let's talk about the state of crime and violence in this country, Madam Speaker. We just came out of 2022 where we experienced a record number of murders in this country. A historic first, another historic first. And can you imagine the Honorable Minister of National Mobilization, the Honorable Prime Minister, repeatedly, not National Mobilization, I apologize, National Security, the Honorable Prime Minister, repeatedly goes on radio and wherever other audience he can attract and talks about it's only a handful of thugs or whatever the word he uses that's responsible for this. Well, if I were the Minister of National Security, I'd be ashamed to say that. Because if only a handful of thugs can create a record number of murders in this country and you cannot do anything about it, you ought to resign. Plain and simple. And on top of that, the Honorable Prime Minister goes on radio and talks about we need more police boots on the ground, and he hopes that Colin John, the Commissioner of Police, is listening. Is that how you create and craft national security policy? By going on the radio and calling out something and hoping that the Commissioner of Police is listening? This is the same Prime Minister who accused and chastised former Prime Minister Sir James and former Commissioner of Police Randolph Toussaint as being responsible for the state of crime in this country, for cocaine and all that stuff. So he ought to take responsibility just the same now. We hear all this talk about pan against crime and sports against crime, but what are we benefiting from it? What are people are literally afraid, Madam Speaker. People are literally afraid to walk out at nights and after hours. When I have my Young Dems meeting right there in Beachmont, sometimes the meeting ends at 7, not even 8 o'clock. I have to hire a van to take them home. And they live in neighboring communities like Rockies, Murray Village, Sion Hill, Cane Garden, Frenches. They're afraid. Come on, we cannot trivialize this. We cannot politicize this. Because the way things are happening, any of us could be the next victim. Come on, this is serious stuff. And we ought to address it with the same degree of seriousness. Madam Speaker, let me quickly turn to this issue of roads, to upgrade the road network in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That is one of the objectives of the National Economic and Social Development Plan. So after 10 years, between 2013 and now, the government has decided to undertake a road revolution. Well, why have we gotten to this stage? Why have we gotten to this stage? Because we have allowed the state of our roads to deteriorate to the point where we now need a revolution to fix them. I don't even know where to begin in East Kingstown. Well, I will adhere to the suggestion of my honorable colleague and my constituent. Dorsetshire Hill Road, Madam Speaker, I think I made the point earlier. A few weeks ago, and this is, I am sorry I didn't take a video or a picture of this. A pothole in Dorsetshire Hill was filled with dry grass. Dry grass to bring some relief to the motorists who traverse that road. Come on. Let's not talk about the road from Sion Hill when you get the Sion Hill Junction to go around Cane Garden to come into town, down Longwall. Cane Garden, which arguably is home to the highest percentage of business people in this country. Madam Speaker, when last you went through Cane Garden and saw the roads in Cane Garden? If it's been a while now, I would suggest that you take a drive through there, just for your own edification. Madam Clark lives in Cane Garden, and I'm sure she can attest to it as well. The road from Plumtree, when you come off the main road to go up Dorsetshire Hill, and you veer off to the left to go Rockies and come along Murray Village. My goodness. I drive these roads every day because I go through my constituency every single day. Through French's. You go down French's and the hill before you come down to turn the corner by Pops. In fact, there's a young man, Mr. Prescott, we call him Blackis. He sells those local jewelry and so on right across from the post office. He sells a lot of like turtle shell jewelry and so on. This gentleman has spent almost $20,000 over 7 years to put a retaining wall to prevent the water from a public gutter, a public drain, from basically washing him away. And he has made representation for assistance, some reimbursement for the money that he has spent, and asking for help for further materials. He said, Bramble, I can do this myself. He has done quite a bit of the wall himself, but there's more that needs to be done. And if it's not complete, what he has done before will just be eroded again. Miss Jacqueline Richards up in Hog Hole in Walvaroo, a couple months ago, a retaining wall for the road. It was raining heavily that day. The entire wall collapsed and fell on her house. Up to this day, nothing has been done except a few officials from Braxa going and taking a look. I have made numerous efforts to meet with the Honorable Minister of Transport, and I have been taken around the world and back. I can't even get to talk to him on the phone. Don't look so amused, so amazed, because you know, and I'm sure you get the messages that I'm trying to contact you. But God is good. God is very good. Madam Speaker.
Honorable Member, you have just about 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And I rounded up.
Madam Speaker.
A point of order?
Madam Speaker.
Yes.
I'm raising under 36(3) to bring to the attention of the Honorable Member the insulting language he continues to throw across in this aisle. I've just heard him making reference to the Honorable Member of Public Service. If he's going to continue, I'll raise it again.
Man, please. My response to that, please.
Honorable
Give
Member,
me a break.
we remember that we are cautioned with the type of language. Let's keep it parliamentary.
I'm obliged, Madam Speaker.
Just a general reminder to all members.
Madam Speaker.
Continue.
I know that you said I had 2 minutes.
I stopped. That's what I was just about to say. I'm about to resume your time. Go ahead.
So I have about 1 minute 45 seconds.
Yeah,
all right.
about.
Madam Speaker, I really wish I had more. There's so much I have to say, you know, so much I have to say, but during the course of time throughout the year, I'm quite sure I'll get the opportunities to raise these issues. But I really seriously think the time has come for us to consider some effective mechanism to ensure and to make sure that we, as the servants of the people, this parliament delivers on its promises. I think maybe we need to consider something like a parliamentary oversight committee. This is something that with enforcement powers, and I don't know the legalities. I wish the Honorable Attorney General was here, but I'm quite sure he would hear. But we really seriously need to step up our game. I know in other Commonwealth countries such a committee exists. I know of examples in parliaments where parliamentarians have been charged for dereliction of duty as a parliamentarian. And if we're serious about development, we should not be afraid of implementing and instituting such a mechanism. You know? Transparency and accountability, that is what we're talking about. And that is sorely lacking in this administration. That is why they have not been able to effectively implement the National Economic and Social Development Plan since 2013. Every single objective to which I have referred, every single objective, they have failed miserably in accomplishing. Reducing poverty, reducing unemployment, developing tourism, you name it. The evidence is there. And I know that the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Honorable Prime Minister, I know in their follow-up, the Prime Minister in his presentation and the Honorable Minister in his follow-up will try to dance and tap dance around all the issues. And they will try to find all kinds of things to say about my presentation. The reality is that the reality is.
Yes, Honorable Member.
And I wish to conclude by saying, Madam Speaker, I wish to conclude, Madam Speaker. Yesterday, I posted something on my WhatsApp status. It's a picture of a snake coming out of the sea with a fish in its mouth. And the caption read, "A brave snake saving a fish from drowning." That is the impression I get from this budget. A brave snake saving a fish from drowning. We are all big and we have sense. I'm sure we can interpret it.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, honorable members, thank you very much for listening to me. I'm obliged.